Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the R-Rated Show. Sorry I've been away for a little bit. Been working a lot of hours, but I have a list of things I've been wanting to review. One of them is this, Dracula-2020. It's on Netflix/BBC, and I watched it, and I have some things to say about it. So, without further ado, let's just get into it. Dracula-2020 is the brainchild of the Sherlock writers from the BBC/Netflix, and I really enjoyed Sherlock a lot. I thought it was really well. It was really well done in terms of bringing it into modern times. I felt like Benedict Cumberbatch did a great job being Sherlock. The cast did it great, and they brought it into the modern day very well because I think Sherlock works well with the tools of today's trade. So, Sherlock's a character that centrally is a flawed character, but his main thing is that he's this brilliant man and his life is centered around information. And that fits in so well with today, considering we have all these tools, phones and internet, blogs, things of that nature, videos, video cameras. It opens up things wide to explore in terms of today's modern society and what Sherlock can do and how he solves crimes. And, the writers of that show did a great job. Now they're taking on Dracula, an old character, and they're trying to do the same sort of thing here. Now Dracula, this miniseries is 3 parts, 3 episodes. So each episode is basically like feature length long. Give or take. Didn't look up exactly how long. I know it's over like an hour, I believe, or maybe around an hour long, but essentially it's an arcing story. It starts off with the classic Dracula in the castle, the Bram Stoker's sort of origin story, and they put their spin on it, but they really stay faithful to the classic Dracula character. Now this Dracula, let's say it's an amalgamation of like Bela Lugosi, the Bram Stoker classic sort of Francis Ford Coppola, and then they've also got definitely the Hammer horror, Christopher Lee sort of vibe in there too. And they took, I think that there's a little bit of fan service, I think, in that thinking. They want to take all the best things of those and mash them together. I really like that. I have no complaints. I mean, I want to see Dracula. I want to see that version of Dracula. I've seen other TV shows called Dracula. I think there was one not too long ago that I tried out, and it was too alien from what I like to think of as Dracula. So this really was a good reinvention of Dracula. The first episode is sort of the the origin of Dracula wasting away in his Transylvanian castle. He hearkens a young man named Jonathan Harker under the guise of wanting to buy real estate, and he does what vampires do, drains him of his life essence, his blood, and revitalizes himself so that he can, find more victims and be strong again, right? And the casting for Dracula in this was fantastic. The actor's name is claesbang. Interesting name, great actor. He's definitely got that Bela Lugosi vibe meets a young Christopher Lee. They took those two things and they mashed them together really well, and they kind of wrapped it around in a story that's very Bram Stoker-ish. This is the first episode I'm talking about here. So I really enjoy that. It's very, very dark in its tone, but it's balanced out by some really great humor by claesbang, the writers, the delivery of the actor and stuff. It comes off great because I feel like Dracula, he's this immortal character. He's lived oceans of time. And, there's an arrogance to that. So the humor sort of fits in with the arrogance of it all. Really enjoyed the first episode. Some of the CGI is questionable. I always kind of give it a slide when it comes to streaming services or TV shows. It's not really a game changer, or it's not really a deal breaker for me if some of the CGI is not so great for a TV show. It doesn't really take me out of it too much. There is like a scene with like a baby vampire that looked really not that great, but some of the stuff is really good. Like, some of the transformations they had in there and stuff. I really enjoyed the arc of Jonathan Harker's character deteriorating through the episode. He becomes a vampire, he becomes Dracula's slave, and it just shows over time how he dies, the body dies, but he lives, essentially. It starts off with Dracula sort of just draining him and his life force draining out of this mortal man, but he becomes a servant of Dracula and essentially immortal, and showing how he struggles with being a good man and having the love of his life, his fiancee Mina, slipped through his fingers, and how he still loves her, but he's just becoming this monster. And that was great arc in the story. Mina's part was significantly diminished in this. We don't even really find out it's her until sort of the end. But spoilers in this review, by the way. She says it in the thumbnail title, but which is too bad, but she's in there. Interesting fleshing out of Dracula's character. I really enjoyed the first episode a lot. That was really cool to see Jonathan Harker, kind of like stumble around the labyrinth of this like old castle, and how he sort of pieces together what's happening to him, because he's like lost in this haze of confusion, and it really that aspect of the story lends itself really well to it transfers those feelings onto us while we're experiencing all these things that the charming, handsome Dracula is doing. And that to me is Dracula. I thought they handled that really well. I really enjoyed it. Then the second episode is essentially Dracula on a boat, because he takes a voyage. He's going to the New World, to the United States of America. He's got to see, I don't know what he's doing. He's to find new victims, to find new conquests, I'm sure to set up stakes there, if you will. He's on a boat with all of these people, this ensemble of the captain and the crew, and varying types of society. Some he knows from the past, other new characters. And one by one, they begin to go missing. So it's somewhat of a whodunit, right? We know it's Dracula, but we're watching the people on the ship sort of panic as they realize that people are dying, and the whole time like Dracula's manipulating it. It's a lot of fun. It's a step away. I don't think it's as enticing as the sort of environment that we're in the first episode. I kind of like the richness of that better, but I do enjoy the voyage of the ship and the whodunit sort of scenario. And we should talk about Dracula's counterpart before we get to the third episode, which is played by Dolly Wells. It's Sister Agatha Van Helsing. She's supposedly like a relative of Van Helsing, and she's the head of this monastery, and essentially she's just a badass. She's the balance to Dracula's evil. She's smart and strong and witty, and as you'd imagine you'd have to be to go up against somebody immortal like Dracula. The first episode, Sister Agatha, I really liked, starting at the beginning through the middle, and then towards the end I began to get a vibe that the acting by the actress was not very good. It was something nagging at me, and I couldn't really figure out what it was. And what I realized towards the end of the first episode was she reminds me a lot of Tommy Wiseau. Now, I'm sure that could be tainting my opinion of her acting a little bit, but it was confirmed by the second episode that her acting was really bad. It was really distracting me. Is that the actress or the directors? I don't know, but some of her line delivery and some of the stuff that happened in the second episode was real bad, which is a shame because the episode itself is pretty entertaining. But every time I have a serious scene with her line delivery was so like, I hate to say it, but it felt very amateur. Like I was like, they certainly could have done that line better. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if they were on a rushing on time constraint because of budgets, or it was just the actress and they couldn't get anything better out of her. I don't know, but I just thought she was awful. And by the end of the second episode, I was off of her, which didn't help my opinion of the third episode, which essentially, I'm trying not to go into too much detail because I don't want to give away big time spoilers here. I want you guys to watch it, but on the third episode, a large expanse of time happens, and Dracula is suddenly dropped in modern day London. And he washes up on the shores there. And the way that they bring it into modern time, I thought it was just really jolting. It was just too much too fast. There's a lot of technology, helicopters, and, you know, it just so happens that the chief or the head investigator or police officer or whatever she is just happens to be the spawn of Sister Agatha. It looks just like her, speaks just like her. Like, it was a little far-fetched. It was overwhelming. I was like, oh no, they're gonna like. I worked so much better as a time period piece, because I think they could fudge a lot of stuff within that sort of environment. But when you bring it into modern day, it suddenly clashes. Dracula is forced to think on his feet and adapt and figure out, and, you know, that's where the writing, I kind of feel like, starts to fall apart. Like, it didn't work. It worked great for Sherlock. Didn't work great for Dracula, unfortunately. It was very jarring. And it all of a sudden went from this really, like, sort of almost high quality TV series about Dracula to what felt like just another cheap BBC series, you know, like, just, it wasn't very good. And it was hard for me to even finish the third episode because I lost interest, like, almost on a turn of a dime. I was like, I really don't want to see this version of Dracula. It just sort of lost the momentum it had going. And then in this episode, they introduced Lucy, who, if you know Bram Stoker's Dracula, is a central character. She is sort of Dracula's muse, you know, his great love in terms of, like, you know, he wants to dominate her. He wants to, you know, have her be his bride. And they turn her into this, like, shallow Instagram influencer. I mean, I guess they're like, well, we have to, like, make this reflect the times of today. You know, who would Lucy be? And, you know, they had to go the POC. They had to make her an internet, you know, dweeb. It was just sort of like, you know, that just kind of broke the fantasy for me, and I just really wasn't enjoying it. And the writing wasn't as good, and the humor didn't balance it out anymore. The humor sort of became ridiculous, and Dracula himself sort of became ridiculous. And so the third episode is a no-go. I just didn't enjoy that. But let's just look at the series as a whole. There was some great stuff in there. If you're a horror fan, especially in the first two episodes, there's lots of blood, gory. It's nice and graphic. There's a fantastic fucking werewolf. It's not a werewolf. Dracula can turn into a wolf. So we don't see the transformation into the wolf, but we see the transformation out of the wolf, which was really cool. And you sort of have this really interesting, vulnerable moment outside the gates of this monastery that Sister Agatha lives at. A convent, I guess. And he's having this very vulnerable moment, and she's, like, emasculating him, and he's, like, clinging to his power, you know, he's clinging to his persona, and, you know, he's literally outside these gates, like, pacing back and forth naked, and it's just, she's standing up to him, and all these other nuns are, like, terrified, and, you know, he can't go in and attack them because he has to be invited in, so he's forced to be outside of the gates while she's taunting him. It was interesting to see Dracula in that situation because it showed us a little bit more of it fleshed out Dracula, I think, on screen in a way we hadn't seen before, and I really enjoyed that kind of stuff. This is like the mixture of the grossness of this transformation and that character development was probably the best. I think that was probably the high points of the series for me. In terms of Dracula's character, the Jonathan Harker stuff was really great too, really gross, watching him deteriorate over the course of an episode and his ultimate demise, succumbing to the power of Dracula. It was a great way to build up Dracula's character in the first episode. Second, like I said, second episode was really fun in terms of like seeing how Dracula manipulates these people in this really claustrophobic environment. Some great deaths in there, and a cool flashback with another character, and there's a twist embedded in the story plot, which was interesting. It was just essentially Dolly Wells's, the Van Helsing character, her acting kind of made it diminished the episode a little bit for me. And then, like I said, the third episode was pretty much just a failure at trying to make this character believable in modern day, and it just didn't feel as quality of an episode as the first two. So there you go, guys. There's my review of Dracula 2020. I would recommend checking it out. You might like the third episode. I don't know. You might see it differently than me. I definitely say the first and second episodes are very good. If you are a Netflix streamer, it's worth a watch for sure on an evening, got nothing to do. I think it's a healthy take on Dracula. It was an interesting conglomeration of all the iterations of Dracula we'd seen before, and the actor himself, claesbang, did a great job playing Dracula. I mean, he's very regal and very respectable version of Dracula. He's definitely got that Bela Lugosi vibe, man, and I really liked that. That was really cool, and without it being like cliche and hokey and corny, you know. It was really good. So, you know, I'm mixed on it. I mean, if I was going to grade this I would say on a letter scale, I'd give it, you almost have to grade each like episode. If I was going to grade each episode, I'd say first episode was like an A-, the second one was like a B, and the third one was, I would say, a D. Altogether, what would we get out of that? Probably like a B or a B plus or something like that. You know, not too terrible. It's got high strengths and weaknesses, but I would say definitely check it out. I enjoyed it, and you guys, thanks for watching. And I'm gonna do a lot more reviews, get caught up on stuff I've been wanting to do, and please hit subscribe. We finally passed 1,000 subs. I think I had 1,060, 1,070, something like that. Things are growing great. People are coming on board. If you enjoy the content, hit subscribe, the bell for notifications. Until next time, guys, stay awesome, stay R-rated. Cheers. Hey, what's up, everyone? Josh here. Just want to say thanks so much for listening to the show. We really do appreciate it. And if you enjoyed the content, please hit the like button and go ahead and subscribe and hit the bell for notifications. We'd love to have you on board. Lots of great content coming in 2020. And we just really enjoy the community over here and enjoying pop culture together. So if you get a chance, hit subscribe. Really appreciate it. And until next time, guys, stay awesome, stay R-rated. Cheers.